Hi guys, good to be here. A couple of caveats before I start. Yeah, I just came back. I was lucky enough to get a scholarship from the Water Corporation to go to the US for 2 weeks looking at direct potable recycling on the West Coast. When I did my itinerary, I forgot about crossing the date line, so when I came back I lost a day, so I flew in less than 48 hours ago. So if I'm sounding more addled than usual, that's why. The second one is the information I've got in here is right on the cutting edge, right? So this stuff will change, but I wanted to give you the very latest and greatest of what we've got, okay? So this stuff will change, but this is what we've got for now. Water Corporation at the moment is doing this tap-in exercise where we're doing a lot of interaction with the community over what they want us to be looking at and why. I won't go through the detail of these, but really what this says here, pretty much everyone's in support of water recycling, but don't hit me in the hip pocket. The cost of new infrastructure and impact on household bills were their primary concern. So we have a license to push people on water recycling, but don't make my water bills any higher than they have to be. So you get kind of narrowed down on that. Second one on that. I did some workshops recently where I was looking at the whole third pipe thing that was Agni was mentioning. Sydney Olympic Park, they recycle water back into the house, so they use it for flushing toilets, and they also use it in washing machines, okay? So I was actually asking questions around how comfortable are you with how close to home that recycled water is going to get. And what this basically says, okay in the garden, or okay with washing, which surprised me, and okay with toilets as well. Another interesting thing that came up during this was a large proportion of people believe that as a community we already drink direct potable recycled water, okay? Which is interesting. I mean, I spent 10 years getting groundwater replenishment up, okay, and the day that we did the public launch, Terry Redmond, the then minister, did an awesome job, and he was drinking the water. He wasn't meant to do that. That was against the rules because it goes in the ground. It doesn't go straight in the supply, but he did it anyway. And I just wonder if somewhere in the public psyche that's all that stuck. Would make my job looking at direct potable recycling a bit easier if people think that. However, that said, despite this customers already assume you drink it, most preferred that it went into the ground first. And I'd say I'm among those, okay? I know a lot about this process technology. Bit of time in the ground is not a bad thing. But I'm not actually talking about direct potable recycling today. I'm talking about the water sensitive city stuff. And yeah, basically people want us to be looking more at water recycling. Okay, come on. Now I'm not going to go through all of this. This is the plan to 2030 to achieve being the most water sensitive city in the world that the Water Corporation has set. When we started looking at this, because I've done an awful lot in recycled water before, I got the challenge of looking at how to move to the next target. I'm really going to focus on the targets here, right? Which for my sins must be many. I've been involved in setting every single one of these targets. So back in 2003, 20% of water recycled by 2020. A few years later, we went sort of synergy, 30% by 2030. See how it lines up there? And now the current five-year milestone is 3 new rural recycling schemes apart from groundwater replenishment being in place. And by 2030, 40% of water recycled, including 10% for amenity, which picks up. The challenge that's coming ahead of us now is not drinking water supply, it's that broader water cycle thing. That's the thing that we need to be focusing on. So both these talks are a great segue into what I'm talking about now. So thanks, guys. That wasn't actually planned. And really this is looking at ground replenishment, which I'll touch on. And then at the moment I'm involved in all these pre-feas studies on looking at, the generally what I talk about is it's like being on a chessboard, and when you get to the edge of the chessboard, you jump off, right? You build something. If we do the things the same as we've already done them, we're going to get the same result. So we've got to change policy boundaries, technical boundaries, how we work with local government, how we work with the resource regulator. You've got to shake it up to try something new. So that's really what I'm looking at here. All right, so looking at that 40% target with 10% for amenity, how are we looking at the moment? So when we get this second stage of ground replenishment up, that's 28 gig. That's roughly 10% of our total supply, okay, in terms of public drinking water supply. In terms of the makeup of what we recycle at the moment, that's what it looks like. So 75% of the recycling in 2008 is from GWR. Forget about it. In plant, so that's recycling within Water Corporation's own wastewater treatment plants is about 2.8 gig, and recycling to industry, which is the Kwinana water recycling plant, mainly is about 6 gig a year. Thing to bear in mind about all of these is either the demand is consistent all the year round. So you haven't got that summer-winter thing that you get with watering grass. Or here, with ground replenishment, you can bank it in the ground, okay? That's why those schemes got up, right? Because you've got a small number of customers who are prepared to pay a high value. It's substituting for scheme water within Water Corporation assets here, or it's creating a new drinking water supply. High value, consistent demand, and large schemes, right? $2.50 a cubic metre. That's why those are up. You look up here, that's McGillivray Oval, Mundaring scheme. There might be one other, I can't think, but it's a tiny proportion, okay? Because we've had all that free groundwater underneath our feet for so long, we don't use recycled water for watering grass in this city. We never have had to until now. So that is where the future sits, okay? And we get to 26% by delivering stage 2 of GWR. So for the original target of 30% by 2030, you're nearly there, okay? All right. By 2030, going base case, simple way of doing it, one more groundwater replenishment scheme at Woodman Point, stage 1 and 2, 32 gig scheme, 41% home and hosed, okay? But that's all public drinking water supply. There is no amenity stuff in there. There's nothing about what these two guys have just been talking about in there, unless you start watering green space with scheme water. But it's entirely doable. However, so there, the low-hanging fruit with all that consistent demand, high volumes, small number of customers, it's all been done, or is captured in planning with the future stuff for ground replenishment. However, in terms of increasing water recycling, is it the most competitive, right? If we can build a desal plant 4 k's down the coast for $300 million less, we'll probably do that. In fact, we will do that. We will not deliver a major recycling scheme just to meet a target. Our job is to maintain supply, and our customers have told us they don't want to get hit in the hip pocket. So they're not interested in paying more, okay? Is it the most competitive source? Are the aquifer and groundwater conditions suited to GWR? North of the river, broadly, it's yes, because Nangara Mound is sitting there, and we get, 130 odd gig a year out of Nangara Mound already, so you've got that asset capacity and you've got good groundwater quality. South of the river, Jandakot, we get about 12 gig out of Jandakot each year, so it's a very much smaller aquifer. The salinities down there are somewhere between 1,200 and 1,600. You have to blend that to be able to get it into the supply, okay? We have one Yarragadee in the Jandakot scheme at the moment, one Yarragadee bore. The salinity of that is so high that if we're not running our Perth desal plant, we have to turn the bore off, okay? So you've got water quality issues you've got to deal with there. And it does not provide for water amenity, which will become a significant issue in coming years. That's what I'm going to talk about now. Now, this is hot off the press. I love this. So our geospatial guys are pretty clever guys. So what I wanted to do is picking up on that whole sewer mining use for amenity in areas of development, northeast corridor, southeast corridor, etc. Where is the wastewater that we can actually use? Okay, so what this is all of our pump stations, and they are sorted by how much flow per day is going through there, okay? And also then the wastewater treatment plants, all the big ones are on the coast or near the coast, and I've also got the major drains. That wasn't a different colour, oh yeah, green, that's strange. So I've got the major drains. This is a first cut, and it's today's flows, it's not in 2030, so there'll be growth in there, but it's kind of trying to get the feel of what you might be able to get out of this. Few things to bear in mind. If you are going to take water out of a sewer mine it, you've got to leave enough in there for it still to be a sewer. You can't get stuff sticking in there. I'm trying to keep it. The other thing, this is a big one. You can only take the water once. These systems connect. Woodman Point wastewater treatment plant is here, so all this flows into itself. So if you mine the water up here, it ain't here anymore, okay? So there's a number of these that you can do, and once the water's gone, it's gone. I guess the other one that I put in here is that in areas of new development, the wastewater catchment is the new development. And Kumara Pimpana in the Gold Coast of Queensland, they tried to build a large scheme there, and I talked to a guy that was involved in design of that, and he said it's like trying to build a skeleton from the fingers backwards, okay? You don't have the development happens in small pockets, so you've got to build all your conveyance to bring all the water in, and then you've got to take it all out again to those remote areas. They decommissioned that scheme after 5 years, right? They couldn't get it to run. They couldn't maintain sufficient chlorine residuals in the pipes to get the water back to where it was needed. So it's a challenging thing with doing this sort of stuff. All right, so then I did a bit of, again, This is not biblical. This is just me doing the thing I do, which is sort of projecting the possibilities of what we might be able to do. Putting all that together, this is looking at the different kinds of sewer mining opportunities, either from the collection mains or from the treatment plants or from drainage. That's the sort of top end you might get. Because of constraints on land, on conveyance, on end use being near to where the water actually is, you're not going to get all of those, all right? It's just the way life is. So that's probably the realistic number that you might get. All of these are probably going to be seasonal demand, picking up on that amenity value, because you're not going to need the water all the year. You're therefore going to be able to store the water somewhere, which means you either need an aquifer or you need a treatment system that you can hibernate for 4 to 6 months a year. Those things are constraints. But you'll knock all that together, you're going to get somewhere between 13 and 21 gig a year. That number will be wrong, but it's not 100, right? It's that sort of number. Now, bearing in mind that looking at the department's draft of looking at gap between supply and demand in 2050, the supply-demand gap, excluding scheme water, is over 150 gig, right? That is our total seawater desalination production today, right? That is daunting to me, right? That is a big issue. But that is what you can get from recycled water from the sewers, okay? And this isn't about meeting the target, that's what there is, okay? So 15 to 20 decentralised schemes could deliver around 15 gig of recycling by 2030. Now, you'll get growth, but that's kind of the feel, you know. You might get 20, you're not going to get 50. And the other thing, most will substitute for groundwater replenishment. So once you've taken the water further up catchment, it's no longer going to Subiaco or Beanyap or Woodman Point. So if you do a GWR scheme there, you're not actually getting more, you're just getting different. It's not good or bad, it's just different. So, achieving 40% with the 10% amenity, that's the existing again. You put the sewer mining in there with your 15 gig from your 15 to 20 schemes. You're not at your 40%, so you still need stage 1 of Woodies doing GWR in order to achieve the 40% target, okay? The target's just a target, but it just gives you a benchmark as to comparing it with the business as usual. It's interesting to say business as usual recycled water for drinking these days. 10 years ago, that was not business as usual. Anyway. But you get there and you're 40%. But bear in mind, right, so a lot of you guys would be out there operating things in the real world. Running one big thing, so much easier than trying to run 15 to 20 small bloody things. I tell you, I've tried it. You know, people are working out in the regions, you're going to hear about that later on. Working out in the regions when you've got a lot of small assets that you've got to try and keep working to space far apart, it is a much more challenging job and more expensive, okay? Your unit costs are going to be much higher, which then comes back to our customers don't want their bills to increase. Are they going to feel like that when everywhere starts to go brown and they want a nice urban green space to be playing around in? Let's see. You know, we're going to find that out. Okay. This is a great example. I thought that Doug Edgar from GHD would be here, so I was going to ask his permission to use the slide that I've just stolen off him in session, but he's not, so I'll ask him later on. But he'll be fine when Doug and I go back. Doug and City Manager came in and presented this work to us recently, and this just encapsulated the challenge that this city faces coming up in terms of non-drinking water. Just gonna have a swig. So, what you got here, City of Mandurah, Gordon Road wastewater treatment plant is plonking right in the middle of it. That infiltrates treated wastewater into the ground at the moment, okay? They have 160 hectares of irrigated area, about 5 by 10 Ks. Their current demand is 0.6 gig, ultimate demand of 1.2. They are looking to do recycled water from Gordon Road to meet their reductions in allocations that are coming over there. 97 areas to irrigate, okay? You don't need to do a whole lot of engineering to work out, you're never going to get recycled water to supply to every single one of those. You can do as much work as you like. Getting the conveyance in ain't going to happen. Getting the capacity to demonstrate that you could recharge an aquifer and hydrogeologically connect from, say, here to here, you can't, right? That's the reality of local government trying to maintain the amenity of its public open spaces when you've got a drying climate, okay? And it's $20 to $30 million, right? That's big bucks for a local council. You got that sort of money to spare? Yeah. And the thing that's also, from a water corporation perspective here, Gordon Road, Horsehead and Catherdup down here, we have an ocean outfall launching place called Tim's Thicket down here, right? And we bought that 40 years ago so that we could put the ocean outflow in for the Mandurah scheme. And then inconveniently, somebody went and built Mandurah between the wastewater treatment plant and the ocean outfall. So we can't get there anymore, okay? Great planning. So the only way of getting rid of that wastewater reliably in the much longer term is to pipe it north to the CPU depression ocean outfall, right? That's about 40 k's. It's through some really gnarly country, right? Trying to get it through there. There's Ramsar wetlands, there's urban, there's... That's north of $100 million. So if I can find any way of getting rid of that water without having to build that pipe, that's a really good solution. But the demand from Mandurah is nowhere close to the amount of water that we've got to get rid of, okay? So it doesn't end up being a solution for the long-term wastewater management option. I wish it was, it'd be really good. But that's the way it is. Okay, so insights. Very challenging to supply 97 areas. So therefore either areas not supplied will go brown in summer or likely be supplied by scheme. You know, it's going to come a point in this city when people make a decision that they want that amenity. And you know, I can say, doing the water sensitive urban design thing is great, but that ain't going to give us 150 gig of water, right? This is big amounts of water that we need to be dealing with here. So I can see either we change our headspace, we've become more like southern Spain in how we look at, because we basically imported our culture from the UK, you know, the cottage garden kind of thing. We are not used to an arid environment. That's not how we feel. And I get that, that's okay. But we either change our headspace or we get used to paying to water grass with scheme water, which then for me as the utility means I've got to build that into my growth, and then you're bringing forward, you know, serious water sources. And this situation will be duplicated right across the city. Mandurah's probably got the best wastewater treatment plant for reuse that there is. It's right in the middle of their jurisdiction. The water goes into the ground, so you've got that seasonal banking. They got troubles. If you're pretty much anywhere else, it's only going to get harder, okay? Now, I love this one. So, Canning River augmentation. 100 years ago when we built Canning Dam, there were people that had rights to water from the Canning River and the Wollongong River. And you go down the 15 dams that we've got, that happens on most rivers. When we put the dam in, we had to maintain those water rights, okay? So, to quote Michael Payne, not a lot of people know this, but we actually release chlorinated scheme water from our conveyance to the Canning and Wollongong rivers to augment the flows. Chlorinated water. That does my head in, frankly. Somewhere between 2 and 4 gig of scheme water to the river each year. So when I was looking at where because anything you can do that's going to close that cost price gap, right, is something worth looking at. So at the moment we're doing a lot of work on water quality in the Canning River. Now, where are we? Waterworks Road down here. So there's a major wastewater pump station. That's somewhere around 10 meg a day, right? So if you could do sewer mining here, treat that water to a very high standard, get that water to where we're doing these riparian releases at the moment, that's scheme water substitution. That's big bucks to us, okay? It's also much more cost effective for the community. There'll be a Metronet station somewhere around here, Tim, would it? Forestfield, yeah. So there's also the International Rowing Lake somewhere here, and I know Champion Lakes has got problems. So, you know, you've got to try and stitch something together where you're looking at the scheme water benefits. Do we go inside the houses for the new developments there? That's what I'm, you know, these pre-feasibilities, it's what can you get that's going to give you something that's going to be a game changer. Worked okay with GWR. This is actually, frankly, more challenging. So could you sewer mine to substitute? That's a really interesting concept to me, that one. Now, there's always this nexus between the quantity and the quality. Everybody wants the water to be there, but everybody wants everything in the water to be not there. So nitrates, phosphates, pathogens, all of that stuff, salinity. So imagine if you've got to not eutrophy the Canning River. You know, if you end up with you know, algae choking up the whole river, you haven't got a good result. So that's something that we've got to deal with. And again, this seasonality. Annoyingly, the aquifers around Waterworks Road are really not good at storing water seasonally. There's no confining layer. Damn, that's the way it is. 1 minute. Okay. Management of residuals. What are you going to do with your biosolids that you're creating? You can put them down the sewer, but you've got to maintain sufficient flow that they're actually going to keep flowing. They're not going to clog up the sewer. And I've mentioned it, incorporation of amenity end uses. and in-house to improve economics. So any scheme water substitution you can get in there is going to help. So, conclusions. Perth is close to being climate proof for scheme water. If we delivered one more major scheme, we've basically eliminated reliance on surface water, okay? The emerging challenge is to provide water for non-potable and amenity uses. This is a big one. Recycled water will play an important part in this, but it is not a silver bullet. The water balance just is not there to meet that amount of water that is required to deal with the non-potable uses. And my feeling is, this is not Water Corporation, this is Nick Turner. I think we're going to transition into a world where we get used to the fact that we are irrigating green spaces with scheme water. Okay, I can't see either that or we become more Southern European in our headspace. Thank you very much.